January 1st, 1863. Freedom was declared for millions. In Texas, 250,000 people remained enslaved for 2.5 more years. The untold story of Juneteenth does not begin with liberation. It begins with why freedom was withheld. In the cotton fields and sugar plantations of Texas, daily life was measured by the forced extraction of human labor. Men, women, and children woke before dawn, working under the constant threat of violence, their bodies treated as mere instruments of profit. But the true weight of bondage lay in the total theft of a person's life. Every hour worked belonged to another. Every child born could be sold away at a moment's notice, tearing families apart with a single signature on a bill of sale. Enslaved people endured a terrifying silence, isolated from the rest of the nation, never knowing if or when their suffering would end. This life was defined by an unyielding, quiet struggle to survive. On January 1st, 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation legally declared millions of enslaved people forever free. Yet in Texas, this historic decree remained a distant whisper. Because enforcement required Union military control, the remote state became a safe haven for slaveholders. Planters from across the South actively fled westward, bringing thousands of enslaved people with them to keep the system intact. They hid the news of liberation, extracting forced labor through violence long after the law had outlawed it. For over 2.5 years, human bondage continued in silence, protected by geographical isolation and active resistance. This vast gap between legal decree and lived reality meant that power, rather than paper, decided who was free. The moment of reckoning was moving toward the island of Galveston. On the morning of June 19th, 1865, Union vessels docked at Galveston. 2,000 Union soldiers of the 13th Army Corps marched onto the island, bayonets gleaming, representing a physical power that could no longer be ignored. Command fell to Major General Gordon Granger. From his headquarters at the Osterman Building, Granger issued General Order No. 3. Its words shattered the silence. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This was the decisive moment of enforcement, transforming a distant legal promise into an inescapable public reality. While the order did not instantly dismantle bondage across every corner of the nation, it broke the back of slavery in its last major stronghold. In the streets, at the Customs House, and outside Reedy Chapel, the reading of the order sparked a great wave of raw, long-delayed joy. For Eliza Holman, a young girl in Brazoria County, the reality of the announcement took hold the moment she saw her mother. When the Union soldiers finished reading the order, Eliza ran to her mother's arms, and both wept, crying out, "Freedom at last!" Across Texas, the shock of that single word, free, shattered decades of forced silence. This first breath of liberty lived in the immediate, desperate search for separated family members. It filled spontaneous songs of praise, knees hitting the dirt in prayer, and the quiet embrace of relatives who had survived the auction block. These raw, weeping gatherings quickly transformed from an overwhelming release of pain into the deliberate acts of a people reclaiming their humanity, marking the exact moment survival turned into remembrance. These first gatherings quickly grew into a recurring ritual of survival and joy. Families met annually around local churches, the center of community life, sharing slow-smoked barbecue and red hibiscus tea to honor the bloodshed during bondage. They sang spirituals like "Free at Last," turning their liberation into an inheritance. In 1872, Reverend Jack Yates and other formerly enslaved leaders raised $300 to purchase 5 acres of land in Houston. Named Emancipation Park, this ground became a permanent sanctuary of self-determination, ensuring that the memory of their freedom would never be erased. On December 6, 1865, the ratification of the 13th Amendment legally abolished slavery across the United States. Yet, a pen stroke could not instantly rewrite the social order. Within months, Texas enacted restrictive black codes, forcing freed people into predatory sharecropping contracts that enforced debt and mimicked the very bondage they had escaped. By the late 19th century, Jim Crow segregation systematically stripped Black Americans of their votes and basic rights. Juneteenth endures as a living symbol of resilience because it marks the space between paper promises and actual, lived equality. It is a reminder that true freedom is a continuous, unfinished struggle. The ache of delayed justice became an eternal light of resilience. Today, Juneteenth remains our living roadmap to true equality. Join the conversation below.